Have you ever gotten to, say, the third week of the month and thought to yourself, wait a minute, where did my entire paycheck just go? There's no way I spent all of that. Or maybe you've tried using one of those super strict, wildly complicated budgeting spreadsheets, only to feel completely overwhelmed. You end up giving up because, let's be honest, it felt like a full-time job that required a magnifying glass and a bottle of aspirin just to get through. Listen, if you don't have a finance background, the whole world of budgeting can seem incredibly intimidating, but you are absolutely not alone in feeling this way. The truth is, traditional, rigid budgeting methods can be totally overwhelming for complete beginners. And honestly, validating that frustration is the very first step to actually fixing it.
So let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we are demystifying the famous 50-30-20 budgeting rule. But before we look at the solution, we really need to look at the problem. Why do so many traditional budgets fail in the first place? Well, methods like zero-based budgeting ask you to track every single dollar and give it a very specific job. And hey, that can be fantastic for some people, but for beginners, it's literally exhausting. These methods can be so rigid, leaving zero room for error, or you end up dealing with the massive headache of tracking down some mysterious 43-cent discrepancy. And worse than that, they often leave absolutely no room for personal spending or fun. If your budget is so strict that it feels like a punishment, you're probably going to throw in the towel after just one hard month. So instead of acting like a micromanager, the 50-30-20 rule, which was actually popularized by Senator Elizabeth Warren and her daughter Amelia Warren Tayaji back in their 2006 book, acts as a really simple bucket system. Think of your monthly income like a giant, delicious donut. We're just slicing it up into 3 distinct, manageable pieces, rather than sweeping up 1,000 tiny crumbs.
Okay, so here is exactly how we slice up that donut. This straightforward framework breaks your money into 3 simple percentages. 50% goes to your needs, 30% goes to your wants, and 20% goes to your savings or debt repayment. And that's kind of it. It's highly approachable for your general financial health because you don't have to stress over categorizing every single $5 coffee shop receipt. You literally just have 3 main buckets to focus on. But wait, this is absolutely crucial. Before we can slice up your income, you have to make sure you're using the right starting number. You must base your budget on your take-home pay. This is your after-tax income. It's the actual amount of money that successfully lands in your checking account after the government takes its taxes and your employer takes out any deductions. Because if you try to budget based on your gross salary, that big, flashy number on your official offer letter, the math is going to break immediately. You'll feel like you're failing when you actually aren't, simply because you don't have that money in your pocket to spend in the first place. Now, the biggest hurdle for beginners, actually, scratch that. The biggest hurdle for pretty much everyone is just figuring out what goes where. So let's contrast these clearly. Over on the needs side, we have absolute necessities, like basic groceries, a standard cell phone plan so you can actually do your job, and your rent. On the want side, well, things get interesting. Eating is a need, for sure. But dining out or buying premium ribeye steaks, that's a want. Having a phone is a need, but buying those microtransactions in your favorite mobile game, definitely wants. Shelter is a need, but a fancy weekend getaway is a want. You really have to be brutally honest with yourself here. All right, let's look at that first and largest bucket, the 50% for needs. These are the absolute essentials required to keep your household running. We are talking about housing, which most experts say should ideally stay under 25 to 30% of your income if at all possible, plus your utilities, your minimum debt payments, basic groceries, and essential insurances. The general rule of thumb to remember is this. If missing a payment negatively impacts your life or completely wrecks your credit, it belongs right here in the 50% bucket. Next up is the 30% bucket for wants. These are the flexible, non-essentials that, let's face it, make life enjoyable. And I want to be incredibly encouraging about this. It is completely 100% okay to allocate funds for streaming services, takeout, hobbies, and buying new clothes. Having a designated bucket for fun money is exactly what prevents you from feeling restricted. It ensures that this budget is actually sustainable month after month, year after year. Now, what's really brilliant about this final 20% is the strategy behind it. This bucket is for savings, building an emergency fund, or making extra debt payoffs way above the minimums. A fantastic strategy here is to essentially pay yourself first. Just automate this 20% right out of your checking account the very second you get paid. You secure your future before you even have a chance to be tempted to spend it. To really see how this all comes together, let's bring this down to earth and apply the framework to some real-world numbers. It'll show you exactly how easy the math really is. So let's imagine a household bringing in a $4,000 monthly take-home income. And here is how that $4,000 breaks down across our three categories. No crazy complicated formulas here. Your 50% needs bucket gets $2,000. Your 30% wants bucket gets $1,200, and your 20% savings bucket gets $800. It really is that simple. So let's look at what each of these numbers actually means for your day-to-day life. First up, this $2,000 represents the absolute hard cap for your survival expenses. Your rents or mortgage, your weekly grocery store runs, your electricity bill, and your car insurance combined need to stay at or below this $2,000 mark for the entire month. It gives you a very clear, concrete target when you're deciding where to live or what kind of car you can afford to drive. Next is the $1,200. Guys, this number is your freedom. This $1,200 gives you absolute permission to enjoy your money completely guilt-free. You want to spend it on concert tickets? Go for it. Dinners out with friends? Saving up for a vacation? Yes to all of that. Because you already know your basic needs are covered, you can spend this cash without a drop of financial anxiety. And finally, this $800. Honestly, this is the most powerful number on the board. This is what will build your 3 to 6 month emergency fund and truly secure your financial future over time. If you put $800 away every single month, you're going to build a massive safety net. And that net is going to protect you when life inevitably throws you a curveball. Now, as you start rolling this out in your own life, you'll want to keep an eye out for a few classic pitfalls. First off, remember what we said earlier. Do not budget based on your gross salary. Always, always use your take-home pay. Second, try not to confuse luxury wants with absolute needs. A basic apartment is a need, sure, but a luxury penthouse downtown? Yeah, that's a want. And third, please don't give up after just one rough month. Making adjustments is totally normal when you're just starting out. The only true failure here is throwing your hands up and quitting completely. Of course, no system out there is entirely flawless, right? As Albert Einstein is often quoted as saying, every problem should be simplified as far as possible, but no further. Some financial critics do point out that the 50-30-20 rule might actually oversimplify things a bit too much. For instance, the line between a need and a want can get really blurry depending on your specific lifestyle and exactly where in the world you live. And that's exactly why it is so vital to view this as a guiding framework, not some flawless, rigid law. Think about it. If you're a lower income earner in today's high inflation economy, keeping your absolute needs to exactly 50% might be incredibly difficult, if not downright impossible. Conversely, if you are a very high earner, you should ideally be saving way more than 20% simply because your basic living expenses make up a much, much smaller fraction of your total income. Which brings us to a super important reminder. This explainer is meant for general financial education to empower you and help you kick off your journey. It is not personalized investment or financial advice. Our goal is for you to understand the basic mechanics of budgeting so you can take this 50-30-20 baseline, play around with it, and tweak it to find the customized balance that works perfectly for you and your family. So I want to leave you with this one provocative question. What does your personal 50-30-20 breakdown look like right now? I highly encourage you to pull out a calculator today, grab your last paycheck, and just multiply your monthly take-home pay by 0.5, 0.3, and 0.2. See exactly how your current spending aligns with these three buckets and take low-stress control of your financial future today.